Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through that dense official language and give you the clear picture you need.
That's the goal.
Today, we are definitely plunging into a big one. Executive Order 14196. The title is A Plan for Establishing a United States Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yes, and this is really a foundational document. It sort of sets the stage for potentially a major shift in economic policy.
So the specifics.
Right. We're looking at Executive Order 14196, signed by President Donald J. Trump. That was on February 3rd, 2025.
Okay.
And then it got published, officially in the Federal Register on February 10th. That makes it official government business.
And the Federal Register, just quickly, that's the government's daily journal, right, where all these actions land?
Exactly. It's the official record. So
Yeah.
this isn't just some idea. It's a formal directive.
Okay, so our mission here is pretty clear. We're going to break down the actual policy language, look at the ambitious goals stated, and the critical action items this order mandates. We want you to really grasp the scope, but also, maybe more importantly, the practical limits.
Good point. There are always limits.
All right, let's unpack this plan for a U.S. sovereign wealth fund. We'll start with Section 1, the stated policy and its core purpose.
Okay. So the order kicks off by grounding itself legally. It cites the Constitution and U.S. laws as its authority.
Standard procedure.
Pretty standard. But the real substance is in the stated motivation. It says the aim is to promote the long-term financial health and international leadership of the United States.
Long term, that jumps out immediately. This isn't about a quick fix.
Not at all. And when you dig into that first section, policy and purpose,
Yeah.
it gets really explicit about who benefits.
Right. It says the goal is, and I'm quoting here, to maximize the stewardship of our national wealth for the sole benefit of American citizens.
That phrase, sole benefit of American citizens, that's really the cornerstone, the whole philosophical basis for this thing.
It is. And, it's worth pointing out how different this would be. I mean, the U.S. has trust funds, things like Social Security, the TSP,
Sure, various funds exist.
but a formal sovereign wealth fund, an SWF, on the scale of, say, Norway's massive fund, that would be a completely new way for the government to manage national assets.
Absolutely monumental. This order is trying to push that idea from just, theory into something concrete, a real plan.
And the administration lays out exactly what it wants this fund to achieve. There are 4 specific goals listed, declared to be in the interest of the American people.
Yeah, let's tick through them. They present an interesting mix.
Okay, first,
First, promote fiscal sustainability.
makes sense for a fund. Second,
Second, lessen the burden of taxes on American families and small businesses.
okay. Third,
Third, establish economic security for future generations.
long term again. And fourth,
And finally, fourth, promote United States economic and strategic leadership internationally.
okay, so goals 1, 3, and 4, fiscal sustainability, future security, global leadership, they seem to fit naturally with the long-term investment fund, right?
They do. That's what these funds often aim for globally.
But goal number 2, lessen the burden of taxes on American families and small businesses. How does a fund built for, decades of growth achieve that quickly? Or even at all in the near term? That seems tricky.
That is exactly the crux of it. You hit the nail on the head. A typical sovereign wealth fund, it saves and invests, often off budget. Profits usually aren't touched for years, maybe decades.
All right, patience is key.
So if the policy really intends to hit goal number 2 in any meaningful time frame, it forces a huge choice on the planners.
What kind of choice?
Well, either the funding source they identify has to be absolutely enormous, generating massive returns almost immediately to offset current taxes, which seems unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Or the definition of lessen the burden is more about, the idea of long-term security freeing things up eventually, rather than an actual near-term tax cut.
So it puts the pressure on the planners to figure out how to balance that immediate political sounding goal with the slow burn reality of long-term investing,
Precisely. And that leads us right into the action part of the order.
which is Section 2, titled simply Sovereign Wealth Fund. This is where the vision meets reality, dictating who does what and when.
Yep, this is the how. The main responsibility is given jointly to the Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce.
Okay, Treasury and Commerce.
And they're told to work very closely with the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy. It's a team effort at the top.
And the timeline. This is where it gets really ambitious.
It really does. They have to jointly submit a comprehensive plan to the President within just 90 days of the order's date.
90 days. from February 3rd, 2025. That feels incredibly short for designing something of this magnitude.
It's breakneck speed. We're talking about potentially reshaping a huge part of U.S. financial strategy.
And this isn't just a vague outline they need, right? The order specifies components.
Exactly. It's not just give us some ideas. The mandate requires very specific things. They need recommendations for funding mechanisms like where does the actual money come from?
Crucial question.
Definitely. Then detailed investment strategies, the actual structure of the fund itself, and importantly, a complete governance model.
Wow. Okay, just the governance model alone.
Mm.
When you look at successful SWFs around the world, getting that right takes ages.
It does. Who appoints the board? How do you insulate it from political meddling day to day? What are the withdrawal rules? What's the exact mandate for returns?
And they need to figure that out, plus funding, plus investment strategy in 3 months.
It strongly suggests they weren't starting from a blank sheet of paper, right? The administration probably had some kind of concept internally.
Must have.
But turning that concept into a formal, defensible plan, especially nailing down the funding mechanism, that's the real challenge in 90 days.
What are the options for funding realistically? Natural resources, redirecting existing assets.
Those are the big candidates. Revenue from, say, federal land leases or maybe redirecting profits from other government-held investments. But each choice has huge implications for the fund size, its risk, and its ability to hit those 4 goals we talked about.
And then there's the legal side. This part really caught my eye. The plan must include a legal assessment.
Yes, quote, legal considerations for establishing and managing such a fund, including any need for legislation.
Including any need for legislation. That phrase is doing a lot of work there. It raises the whole separation of powers question.
It absolutely does. It basically forces the executive branch to confront its own limits. The president can order a plan, sure.
But can he create a multi-trillion-dollar fund that operates outside the yearly budget process without Congress?
Almost certainly not. At least not the kind of permanent, robust fund envisioned here. You'd likely need specific acts of Congress to establish its structure, its funding stream, its governance permanently.
So is it possible they could, bootstrap it? Start small using existing authorities or assets, maybe, and then go to Congress later?
That's probably what that legal evaluation within the 90-day plan has to explore. Could they use existing pots of money or royalties as seed capital under current law? Maybe. But to get the scale, the independence, the long-term guarantees needed to really achieve fiscal sustainability or secure future generations, you inevitably end up needing Congress to legislate it.
So the order is really about creating the argument for Congress, the detailed blueprint.
Essentially, yes. Mapping the path, including identifying what legislation is needed, it acknowledges implicitly that an executive order alone can't build this.
Which makes that 90-day deadline for the plan the truly critical date, not the date of the order itself.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up the blueprint part, we absolutely have to look at Section 3, the general provisions.
The fine print. Often skipped, but usually important.
Crucial here. This section puts clear boundaries around what the order does and doesn't do. It's standard legal language, but with real impact.
Okay, like what?
Well, Section 3A is what's called a non-impairment clause. It basically says this order doesn't step on the toes of existing laws or agency authorities.
So it can't override something Congress already passed.
Correct. And significantly, it specifically protects the functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB.
Why is OMB important here?
Because OMB oversees the budget and reviews legislative proposals. This clause means OMB still has to sign off on any resources needed just for the planning phase, and critically on any eventual legislative proposal that comes out of this plan. It keeps OMB in the loop.
Got it. What else is in Section 3?
Section 3B adds another practical constraint. It says the order must be implemented consistent with applicable law and, quote, subject to the availability of appropriations.
Meaning money.
Meaning money. If Congress decides not to provide funds even for the 90-day planning effort, the whole thing could just stall right there. It needs appropriated funds to move forward.
Okay, so practical hurdles. But you said there was something critical for the average citizen.
Yes, Section 3C. This is the big one in terms of public expectation versus legal reality. It's the ultimate disclaimer.
What does it say?
It states the order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States.
Whoa, okay, let's translate that. What does that mean for, someone listening right now?
It means that whole inspiring vision back in Section 1, lessening taxes, ensuring future security, it's legally just a statement of policy goals, not an enforceable promise to you.
So you can't sue.
You cannot sue. If this fund gets created and years down the line you don't feel your taxes are lower or the future looks more secure, you can't take the government to court citing this executive order.
You can't say, hey, Section 1 promised.
Nope. The order directs action inside the government make a plan. It doesn't create any rights for the public that can be enforced in court.
That is a massive clarification. So putting it all together then, EO 144196 is a significant first step, but it's purely about laying the groundwork.
Exactly. It doesn't create the fund itself.
It just sets this incredibly tight 90-day deadline for Treasury, Commerce, and the White House economic team to deliver a comprehensive blueprint.
A blueprint that has to cover everything: funding, investment, structure, governance.
And critically, the legal pathway, which almost certainly means figuring out what needs to go into a bill for Congress, all for this huge new fund aimed solely at benefiting American citizens and boosting U.S. leadership.
That sums it up perfectly. The immediate impact isn't financial, it's procedural. It creates this pressure cooker deadline for the plan.
It's basically a test then. Can this grand vision for generational wealth move from just a policy paper to a concrete, workable proposal that could actually pass Congress?
That's the test. And the quality, the feasibility of whatever they produce in those 90 days will really determine if this whole sovereign wealth fund idea has legs or if it just stays an ambition.
It definitely signals the administration's priorities, though. Tackling these huge long-term economic issues right out of the gate, even if it's just ordering a plan.
It does. And it leaves us with a really interesting thought, kind of a paradox baked into the order itself.
What's it?
Well, you have this vision outlined for securing wealth for future generations, these big promises in Section 1.
Yeah.
But then you have Section 3C explicitly saying none of that creates any enforceable rights for citizens today.
So the provocative thought for you, the listener, might be, how do you react to that? How does this focus on a long-term promise, one that you can't legally enforce right now, change how you see the political value or accountability of this action today?
Is a non-binding promise of future prosperity enough? It's definitely something to mull over as we wait to see what kind of plan emerges from Treasury and Commerce under this tight deadline.
Indeed, we will certainly be watching that space. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.